Plank 2 is the income tax, and I've got a lot about that in here too. I've analyzed the entire Communist Manifesto and shown how it's being fastened on our country. And then I go back and I say, well, what is money? What is it supposed to be? Is it something mystical? No. Real money is commodity money. It's a commodity that everybody places value in, and therefore it's used in exchange. And all throughout the course of history, what have men decided on to use for money? Paper. No, they've used gold, haven't they? Not decided by some professors or some economic gurus somewhere, but decided by the accumulated wisdom of mankind. Gold is divisible, durable, relatively scarce, desirable. It's got all the attributes you'd want. You can't flood the market with it because it's just not that much of it. And you can back your currency in gold, and then you can plan for the future far better than any American in my generation or generations behind me have been able to do. What did the Constitution of the United States say about money? Well, it was very specific. First of all, in Article 8 of Section 1, it said, Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof. So Congress has the power to coin money. It doesn't have the power to coin paper. You can't coin paper. It has the power to coin money. Now you go 2 sections after that, you get to the limitations on the states. Now keep in mind that the people who went to form the Constitution of the United States came from the different states, jealously guarding state sovereignty. Very, very intently did they want to guard state sovereignty. And yet they allowed in the Constitution of the United States a prohibition on the states emitting bills of credit. That's the term that was used in the time for paper money. No state may emit bills of credit or make anything other than gold or silver a coin in tender for payment of debts. So the federal government can coin money. The states cannot coin paper. Anybody could coin gold, anybody who wanted to. And they couldn't make anything but gold or silver. And then they got around to the 10th Amendment. And what does the 10th Amendment say? Those powers not given to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people. So the Constitution prohibited the federal government from doing anything but gold or silver coin, and prohibited the states explicitly from giving us any paper money. There was to be no paper money officially in the United States. Now, could somebody have started a bank and issued their own scrip? Yes. And the people could have chosen. They could have chosen this bank or that one based on their record, their track record. The thing that we forget about the Constitution is very simple. It's this: if power to engage in any activity is not specifically granted in the Constitution, no federal department or agency may assume it. That's very simple. And certainly, they may not assume it and then give it to the Federal Reserve, which is what has happened. Ladies and gentlemen, there was nothing that the Founding Fathers of the United States wanted less than paper money. They had already gone through the system of the Continental Congress that had financed the war effort by issuing paper money. That became worthless. Gave rise to the phrase, not worth a continental. That's where it came from. And so when they got together at the Constitutional Convention, Oliver Ellsworth of Connecticut declared that this was a favorable moment to shut and bar the door against paper money. James Wilson of Pennsylvania thought that it will have a most salutary effect on the credit of the United States to remove the possibility of paper money. Pierce Butler of South Carolina said that he was urgent for disarming the government of such power, paper money. And John Langdon of New Hampshire, listen to this, he said that he would rather reject the whole Constitution than allow the federal government the power to issue paper money. Look what has happened to us. We dropped our guard. We're allowing the Communist Manifesto to be saddled around us. Well, what about the Federal Reserve? We should talk a little bit about that. Private organization, created in 1913. Every once in a while you get a little help from some places you least expect it. We got an article recently that came from the National Geographic magazine, an article about money. And I want to read a portion to you. Written by Assistant Editor Peter T. White in the January, 1 year ago, 1993, National Geographic. All right, what does he say here? Well, he's talking about the fact that the Federal Reserve has just bought $100 million in Treasury bills from securities dealers. And he's talking to a Fed official. And here, I'll read it. He said, "But where did the Fed get that $100 million? We created it," a Fed official tells me. He means that any time the central bank writes a check, so to speak, it creates money. It's money that didn't exist before, says the Fed official. "Is there any limit on that?" asks Assistant Editor Peter White of the Fed official. "No limit, only the good judgment and conscience of responsible Federal Reserve people." And where did they get that vast authority? And he goes on and explains, it was delegated to them in the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 based on the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, that says, Congress shall have the power to coin money. And did the National Geographic official point out to him that coins are pieces of metal that if you drop go clank, and paper is something quite different? No, he didn't. He let him get away with it. But that's what's happening. Now, when the Fed does that, that lowers the value of your money and your pension fund and your insurance policies and everything you own. Anyone who owns money or owns claims on money is robbed. So people say, you don't like the Federal Reserve? What would you replace it with? And I say, well, you go to the doctor and you have pneumonia. Do you say, doctor, please get rid of my pneumonia? And the doctor says, what do you want me to replace it with? Broken leg? Cancer? Right? No. What we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is abolish it and get back to the United States Treasury issuing money. Issuing money backed by gold and silver. We've got a section in here about the history of banking in the United States, about the fact that we started a central bank soon after the Constitution was formed. I mean, they didn't even pay attention to their own laws way back then. And one of them went out of business after inflating and robbing people. And then another one came into existence. And President Andrew Jackson spent 8 years as the president, and his chief purpose was to get rid of the second bank of the United States. And he succeeded. And he paid off the national debt. And I can remember a history book that they gave me in a little Catholic school in Brooklyn, New York, that painted Andrew Jackson as a buffoon. And the good nuns that gave it to me didn't know any better. Andrew Jackson, come back, right? We need you. I've got a section in here about entitlements. You know, there's an answer. What is an entitlement? Entitlement is a government program that provides money to those who meet congressionally established criteria. Congress sets up some criteria, you can go claim it if you qualify. Now, the greatest of the entitlement programs is Social Security. And I know there's a lot of people who put a lot of money into this, as I have myself. So what are we going to do about it? By itself, the Social Security system can destroy America. Is there any place we can look to where somebody has effectively treated the problem? Yes. Nation called Chile. Conditions in Chile deteriorated to such an extent that a three-way election in 1973 saw a confirmed Marxist named Salvador Allende take control with only 37% of the vote. As might be expected, Allende, he was a radical. He made matters worse. He nationalized the farms and industry. He instituted rationing in the wake of the subsequent food shortages. He destroyed the value of the currency with wild inflation. And he was actually planning to seize total control of the military and the entire nation when he was ousted in a military coup by General Augusto Pinochet. When the military took over, Chile's wholesale price index had climbed 1,147% in a single year. Just imagine living in that. Huh? The national budget deficit was 25% of the entire nation's income. Taxation to pay interest on the debt was crushing economic activity. The country was surviving on imports, even of food.